Hello, everybody, and welcome. It's Friday again, and I am here today with Michelle Golden. I'm Betsy Phillips, Baird & Warner Realtor, and I'm here with Michelle Golden, who is my all-time favorite real estate attorney. She is fabulous, and she is going to be here today to answer your questions and talk to us about everything you need to know and the scary little things about closing properties, and we make it, or actually Michelle makes it really, really easy. So welcome, Michelle.
Well, good morning, Betsy. Thank you for having me today. So it's a pleasure to be here, and we're a team. So this
that's right. We are a team, and we work as a team. It's all the people that work with us, behind us, but we make it happen and smoothly. So
that's right.
Let's talk about because this has come up. Let's talk about condo docs.
Sure.
Who gets them? What happens with them? What's
right? So condo docs, obviously very important documents, because when you're buying a condo, you need to know what the rules are, what the regulations are, the bylaws for that particular development. So it is the seller's responsibility in a closing transaction to obtain the documents and to provide them to the buyer and the buyer's attorney so that they can review them appropriately. And this is really important for a buyer, because I always use the example, say you have your beloved dog and the association bylaws say no pets. Well, that's a big problem and something you need to address early on before you move into that property. So it's always good to review them with your attorney, go through the bylaws, the regulations, make sure there's nothing that jumps out at you that you can't move into that piece of property.
And, something else that in this era of working from home, there could be rules against operating a business out of your home. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
And that doesn't mean necessarily you're running a large business, but that could include being a therapist and a lot of.
Yep, also correct. So any particular type of business, you have to make sure that those businesses are falling within the realms of what a condo association is going to allow in terms of people coming in and out, certain times of the day. Lots of various restrictions that we see in condominiums. So very, very critical to check all of those items if you're going to be having a separate business out of your condo unit.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, and while we're on this, let's get to the most important thing. How are we closing today in the COVID reality?
Right. This has been a really new world for all of us, hasn't it? So, at the beginning when COVID struck and things were shutting down, it was very big a challenge for everybody involved, for the clients to know if they were going to be able to purchase their property in the midst of the crisis, title companies, attorneys, agents. But I have to say, everybody's really stepped up to the plate, specifically, working with Baird & Warner Title. It's been great. They've really made accommodations to, everybody's comfort level. Everybody's had to really sort of take into consideration the safety of their patrons. And, we started doing curbside closings. Baird & Warner was fabulous. They'd have people come out to the car, bring the documents. We'd sit next to each other with curbside closings. And now we've really transitioned into remote closings, which has actually worked out really well for everybody. They're very efficient. It's very comfortable that everybody's in their own space. So we've taken that into consideration. And, the relationship we build up with the clients starts at the very beginning of the deal. And so by the time they get to closing, they're not sitting by themselves. They're sitting with us, whether it's remotely, by phone, or curbside. And it's really worked in this day and age. It's become sort of the new norm that we're all getting used to.
That's right. And I think the clients feel too, they feel like, well, everybody's safe, and that's the most important thing. And so we're accustomed to celebrating, in the beginning. I mean, it is always hard that we can't give a hug, but since we're not hugging, that just isn't happening right now. So we can cheer them on via FaceTime or whatever we need to do. And it saves everybody's time because you're not running all over the universe either. So,
it has been extremely efficient. A lot of times as attorneys, we're finishing up one closing and running to another title company to do another closing. And, there's traffic and there's, accidents and there's all kinds of things and it's stressful. Where now it's actually been a much calmer experience for everybody because there is no drama of that rushed feeling. We're devoting 100% of our attention to the clients at the time that we're working on their closing without any other distractions. So it's actually been, I know people miss that face-to-face, and I certainly do. I'm a people person, but the clients are not being shortchanged in any way. So that's what's most important.
That's right. And that's great because we can always have our celebrations a different way. For instance, we have a mutual client closing today, and we're going to just, when she moves in, I'm going to just go to her new home, drop off some goodies. So, whatever it is. And, sometimes at the closing, they don't want packages of stuff to have to carry anyway. So that's good. So, another thing that I wanted to talk to you about, because I deal a lot with seniors, with adult children, handling their seniors' properties. Explain how the senior freeze and the senior exemption works as when you sell the property, when you go to sell the property.
Right. So it's important, when there's a senior that's the owner of the property, it's important for that attorney to know what exemptions are on the property. And it comes into play because the buyer's attorney is also going to want to know whether or not those exemptions are going to carry over and apply to their client when they purchase the property. Typically, the homeowner's exemption and the senior general exemption will apply forward to the new purchaser. So you don't typically have to reapply for those in Cook County. In some counties, you do. The senior freeze, however, does not always apply going forward. So at that point, it's important for a buyer's attorney to recognize that because it impacts the credits that you're getting on the taxes. As a buyer's attorney, you don't want your client to get stuck for paying a higher tax bill than they're supposed to pay at some point in time. So those are things we take into consideration. And if we see those on the bill, we'll oftentimes ask that those be removed so that the tax bill is calculated appropriately moving forward to closing. Or sometimes we can put into escrow those monies so that it's protected and those monies then get paid later on if that has to be calculated into the bill.
Okay. All right. That's really important because sometimes, buyers, they look at the taxes and they don't think about that. And so that's another sort of red flag that we want to make sure you check that out with your agent and your attorney. You said that the senior exemption can go with the property only if the person is a senior. What if the person isn't a senior?
So if the buyer, are you referring to the buyer?
Buyer.
So the senior, it applies as of January 1. So if a senior is living in that property as of January 1 and then selling the property, the exemption will follow with the property for that year. However, the next year, once the buyer comes in, then that exemption will go.
Okay. So that's sort of a good thing. If you buy a property that has a senior exemption, and you're a young person, you get a year of that senior exemption.
True. But then you also have to remember your tax bill is going to increase.
Right. But, it is what it was going to be. You sort of get that little bonus because you're buying that house from a senior as opposed to somebody who's not a senior.
Correct.
That's a little bonus. Just one thing. Let me see. You know what? Before we close, why don't you tell us other things that the real estate attorney can provide for your clients?
Sure. So, it's really important to have an attorney on board, whether you're buying or selling a property. There's a lot of nuances that come into play in the entire transaction, starting with the contract. it's important for an attorney to review the contract, make sure everything is completed, make sure that the tax prorations are going to be, as we just indicated, generous and appropriate for the property, that the tax bill isn't increasing. There's also deadlines. There's a mortgage contingency deadline that the attorney would have to be involved with, making sure the client gets approval on a buy side. You know, that's a really important deadline that nobody wants to ever miss. Making sure that, you know, everything runs smoothly from start to finish and getting every step checked off along the way, even to the point of making sure everything's ready for closing, obtaining whatever documents are necessary, and then being there to facilitate the closing with the client, to walk them through the lender's package if they're getting a mortgage, to have them understand all the documents and all the numbers that they're paying for at the closing, the seller's package of what the transfer of title means and a deed and a warranty, and then having a title policy. And so it's very important for the attorney to check all those boxes through the process from start to finish, to make sure that everything is done the way it should be.
Right. And go ahead.
Ah.
I was just going to say that while we're together, okay, Newman is interrupting us.
I love your
okay, Newman, you need to sit down. Anyway, what I wanted to...
The other thing is, you know, attorneys, you know, just because the closing ends and somebody buys or sells a house, that's never the end of it. It's, you know, attorneys are great resources. And, you know, in our situation, we work with other attorneys who are tax appeal attorneys. So if you think your real estate taxes go up a year from now or 2 years from now, we have great resources that we can refer to, you know, a client to. So we're always getting clients coming back to us for other sources. And just remember, your real estate attorney works with other attorneys and is in networks with other people. So no matter what the situation is, if it's not something that they directly or myself directly handles, I have the resources behind me to definitely put you in connection with the right people.
And that's really, really important. And Michelle and I will tell you that the biggest part of a real estate transaction is from the minute you get a contract till you close.
Absolutely.
Because that's where all the nitty gritty comes out. A person falls in love with the property. They want the property. You agree on a price, but then the devil is in the details. Maybe that's what it is. So if you do not have somebody, this is where you really need the guidance and protection, which our team, you know, delivers. And that's why I love working with Michelle, because we documents on time. People, sometimes it's just answering the telephone.
You couldn't have said it any better. It really is a process, and it does take the whole team from, you know, you finding that person the greatest property that they're going to fall in love with, to really making sure that everything is done correctly for them. And then our team of, you know, them getting the mortgage on you know, getting the money to fund this wonderful purchase. It really is a team effort. And you really do have to trust the professionals you work with. So for me, it's always a pleasure, because I know, you know, you're going to be answering the questions before you ask me the questions. So it really is a back and forth relationship that's very, very important for clients to know that they have that trust in who they're working with.
And I will say too, Michelle and I did a short sale, and you know, you hear short sales are like a nightmare, and this happens and that happens. And Michelle has somebody on her team. It could not have been any more smooth. It was fabulous, because we had the right people who knew what they were doing do it. So
yeah, and again, I can't say enough about my team that I work with in my office, but also everybody else. It makes all of our jobs much easier.
Right. Well, on that note, I want to say, if anybody has any further questions, they can post it on Facebook, and Michelle and I will get back to you. We both are here to help anybody that needs our help in this, especially in this time of craziness. We're here to bring some calm to it.
right. Thank you so much,
So,
Betsy, for having me on with you. This was really fun. And like I said, like you said, I'm happy to answer questions at any point in time as a resource for anybody. So
yeah, great.
we're here.
Okay, thank you. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. Thanks again, Michelle.
Thanks again, Betsy.
Bye.
Bye. Stay well.